Hello, I'm Rick, the Fat Man GM. I am your GM, your game master for the day. I have 40 years of experience. I began playing when I was 12 years old, and my experience runs from old Dungeons and Dragons through Star Wars and Battletech, Shadowrun, and a slew of others. It's always been my philosophy that role-playing games and tabletop board games, gaming as a social medium is a great way for all walks of life to come together and enjoy camaraderie and exploring and stepping out of our comfort zone, if you will. So, this is your place at the table.
Alright, folks, this is Decision at Midnight. It is another installment from FASA's Star Trek role-playing game, circa late 80s, early 90s. And obviously this is an adventure module for use with that particular game system. Let's see. This one looks like copyright is 86, but I can't go by that because I'm not sure if that's Paramount Pictures Corporation. It's probably their copyrighted. Anyway, the introduction is a playing RPG adventure designed to be used as Star Trek role-playing game. Tenant group of up to 6 characters. This adventure players adopt the roles of junior officers serving in the military operations command aboard the USS Arkadelphia. Arkadelphia is assigned to patrol the area between the Organa neutral zone and the Triangle. This area has become politically unstable due to a recent revolution in the establishment of the Asperix Confederation Union of Planets. Decision at Midnight is a free-form scenario with no standard solution or conclusion. Based on the background information and whatever facts that they can discover during the course of the play, the players will be free to make their own choices. The outcome of the adventure will be determine how well they can convince others to go along with their decisions. The adventure may be used either independently or as part of a campaign already in progress. Players may use pre-generated characters contained in this booklet or may incorporate characters already developed, subject to the Game Master's approval. The Game Master should feel free to modify the contents of this adventure and make it compatible with his own campaign. The plot synopsis. Decision at Midnight begins with the players awaiting their latest duty assignment, the USS Arkadelphia, a Lochnar class frigate. The player characters are all from the same Starfleet Academy class, and while waiting for the frigate, they recount events in their careers to date. After the rendezvous in space with the Arkadelphia, player characters are invited to dine with the captain and his officers. During this formal reception, Captain Valkura outlines his plans for the ship's training maneuvers. It's discussed in the newly formed Asperix Confederation, which the Arkadelphia is assigned to monitor. The next day, the ship establishes a routine patrol and undergoes shakedown procedures. All goes well until a border incident with a Klingon warship leaves the Arkadelphia in the midst of a minefield. Captain manages to extract the ship, but its disposition changes dramatically. Valkora becomes convinced the Klingons intended to use the Asperix Confederation as a staging area for a major invasion of the Federation. As the cruise continues, Captain continues to show signs of aberrant behavior. In a meeting of the minds, the ship's chief medical officer questions Valkyra's fitness for command. Tension increases when the captain, convinced that only he can save the Federation from certain destructions, orders the Arkadelphia to begin a blockade of the Asperix system. In a startling announcement, he broadcasts his intentions and dares the Klingons to cross the blockade. The ship soon intercepts communications from a squadron of Klingon volunteers on their way to Asperix to disband the blockade. Some of the player characters may form an unwanted conspiracy to decide the fate of the ship and of the crew. The situation is desperate. Decide with the captain would be madness. Decide with the conspirators would risk a charge of mutiny. To do nothing would be suicide. As the Klingon warships are getting nearer, the players must act on their decision before somebody starts a war nobody wants. Well, pretty straightforward, right? Yeah. So, we got the adventure, the rendezvous in space, which we've already done over about. Welcome aboard, Valkar's plans, training maneuvers. But the ship is of the Lochnar class, so it's a light frigate, or frigate. It's classified as frigate, so it's a combat support ship in this case. It has just recently left the shipyards, so it's of the Lochner class, or the latest edition of the Lochner class. So part of the operation, of course, is dealing with the shakedown, making sure things are running smoothly. So in this chapter, you got shakedown procedures, warp engine trials, combat efficiency, intruder alert, shuttlecraft trials, a medical emergency, various things to occupy the character's time at the very beginning, until things start to get a little bit off. Then the strange behavior. As the test continues, the captain proves himself to be competent and efficient, tolerant of others almost to a fault, until one incident where the players are present when the ship's medical officer comes in and more or less it starts to poke at the captain, because the captain has been avoiding the standard traditional medical examination that all Starfleet personnel must go through on a yearly basis. We see occasional glimpses of that in the original Star Trek series, where we see Captain Kirk reluctantly doing physical things in the medical bay, so he can be monitored by Dr. McCoy, and occasionally when Dr. McCoy has to poke him because the captain's busy, right? He's going to be pestered by these sort of things. But eventually, Kirk always gives in and does what he's supposed to do, because it's orders. Then we have the border incident. It says, despite the captain's curious behavior, must proceed routinely until the start of the sixth day. During the afternoon watch, a sensor scan picks up an unknown vessel at extreme range, and the captain is summoned to the bridge. He essentially detected 2 contacts. The Alcadafia investigates further contacts are identified as a Klingon heavy cruiser and an Orion blockade runner, both apparently engaged in some sort of cargo exchange. The captain changes course again, this time to intercept. A challenge to the Klingons who withdraw from the area becomes no response from the opposing vessels. Those on the bridge notice strange signs of satisfaction in the captain's demeanor and anticipation of imminent action. Should pointed out, this is a light to medium class. It's a medium class support combat ship, not a heavy cruiser. Going up against a Klingon heavy cruiser is kind of foolish. Not necessarily ignorant, but foolish. The trap, meeting of minds. So now that the captain's erratic behavior is becoming more apparent, the ship's surgeon starts discussing with the player characters, what do we do? How do we deal with it? We need to get it, we relieve him of duty, etc., before they can make a decision on this or act upon it. The next morning of the 7th day, the captain announces that we're going to blockade the Asterisk Confederation, which is kind of difficult to do considering it's 4 planets or 4 systems. So one ship isn't going to do that. Then later in the day, it becomes the players or characters are made aware that the captain has broadcasted a subspace message officially announcing his intention to impose a blockade on the Asterisk star system. He does it in open that way, so both the Asterisk Confederation and anybody nearby, such as the Klingons, can hear it and make their decisions. Collision course resolving the adventure. So in this, pretty straightforward stuff. And we have our map, so the triangle is down over here, Federation, Klingon space, the Orion or the Organian neutral zone, which is supposed to more or less from this side this way prevent conflict between the Federation and the Klingons. A number of little planets have broken up or established themselves in the neutral zone and have declared themselves a confederation. They've also made it clear that they don't want to deal with the Federation. They don't want to trade with the Federation. As best I can find out, most of the population seems to be Orion and or a mixture of other races with the occasional humans and so on and so forth. So now we got our details for the Lochner class frigate. The Arcadelphia is Lochner class Mark V frigate designed primarily as a mid-sized warship capable of combat and support of major fleet actions, built for speed as well as offensive ability. There's actually, I've noted in the older version of the game, 2 versions of a frigate. And the traditional frigate is a fast medium-class warship designed for support duties and or escort duties, and then and thus it's mostly crew and weapons and engine. There's a second class of frigate that's actually considered for carrying a fairly significant number of Marines or naval combat personnel that would allow the ships to be act as enforcing blockades or enforcing interdictions, customs control, things like this, because they have enough muscle to board other ships, and for additional combat maneuvers in that along that line. So the frigates have a tendency to be a little bit of this workhorse style that can cover a number of different contingencies in support of other ships. I believe 3 months ago, the Salazar shipyards flanks rival Starbase Tel. The RFP assumed station near the borders of newly formed Asperix Confederation, keeping its presence secret while awaiting the arrival of full crew complement before beginning a formal shakedown operations. So it's like the crew, like most military vessels, military operations command, the Archipelago has a higher number of enlisted personnel than ship and other branches of Starfleet. Roughly 2/3 of ship's crew are enlisted and non-commissioned personnel. The Archipelago's crew also includes several non-humans. First Officer Brr'ynn is a Caitian, and there are several Terralites serving on board. Given that all the Archipelago's crew is rather new to their position aboard ship, there is little likelihood of problems arising from different races serving under close operating conditions. Ship's defenses, we have the stack breakout here, and we have nice blueprint deck by deck, giving you an interior layout for operating inside the ship and for conducting internal adventures, what have you. Deck descriptions, deck by deck, what they have, what the rooms do, etc. Then we have some assorted additional ships to deal with. So this one here is the D-18 Klingon destroyer, an Orion blockade runner, and then an Asperix patrol craft. The cast of characters, of course, these are your NPCs that can be utilized and or could be utilized as player characters if the players don't want to make their own. Major NPCs, these are the characters that they shouldn't play, because these will be the ones that they play off against. So you've got your captain, you've got your first officer, the Caitian, your ship's doctor. Then we have a breakdown of all the ships all the crew members on board, their ranks, their race, their basic stats, and where they are, I guess, in a specific situation. So, additional crew information, a little bit more detail on some of those individuals, minor NPCs from the outside, Klingons. Not a lot on the Asperix. I guess you're not supposed to deal with them directly. Then we got the background information, the Asperix Confederation, its founding, why its mindset the way it is, why they're dealing with the Klingons and not the Federation, bios on the 4 planets that belong to the Confederation. And we have the Federation's position as of currently, the political position, results from the Battle of Axanar, blah blah blah. Hints on Game Master knows hints on play, how to handle certain situations, the Klingons' position, why the captain is starting to go a little loopy, the mutiny question, reminding the players that mutiny is serious. In case of mutiny, what to do from the GM perspective, how to handle it, how some of the senior officers that are not or NPCs are going to probably react, who's going to side with the captain, etc. Crew combat, the chorus reaction, random events and encounters, various transmissions from Klingons and other outside entities, the Klingon response to the situation, and then the aftermath. So when it's all concluded, you get back to Starbase and have a court of inquiry and potentially roleplay that out as well. And so you have it. A decent little adventure. Decisions at Midnight.